Arise now, ye white whale. Show us your crooked jaw. Show us your wrinkled brow. Rise. The birds. The birds!
He piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the general rage and hate felt by his own race from Adam down. And then, as if his chest had been a mortar, he burst his hot heart's shell upon it. Cloud! Cloud!
Another Moby Dick story. Mike, listen to how crazy this is. How many do we have? Welcome, everyone, to Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. We have another Moby Dick story. Actually, no, we have tonight's episode is Obsession. Of course, I am your seafaring captain, but I have both my legs, Captain Matt Ross, and I have with me, Ishmael, Mr. Michael Pontone, my XO.
Queequeg, mother butt jumper.
You can curse. This is our podcast.
I can't read or write.
Well, that's true. You can read or write. I've seen it.
These,
You put little hearts over your eyes. It's very cute.
It's the equivalent of when they taught the gorilla to do sign language. It's like he can't really do sign language. Michael Pontone can't really read or write. He's just kind of imitating.
I've seen it. I've seen your writing. It's actually very good. So, everyone, welcome again to our next episode. Why are we doing a Moby Dick reference? Well, this is another Moby Dick reference to episode. It's Star Trek's episode called Obsession for Men by Calvin Klein. No, that was our promo. But this is another story where Captain Kirk goes after something that he's obsessed over. It really was based off of Moby Dick. It was written by a gentleman named Art Wallace and directed by Ralph Sinesky, at first anyway. He actually had to take off for a Jewish holiday, and then John Meredith Lucas took over on this. And this was done for November 15th, 1967. So how are we doing tonight, Mike?
Pretty good. We're getting close to the holidays. Court is slowing down the slightest, tiniest little bit.
Finally.
See, watch, and then tomorrow I'm going to get served with some horrific motion for sanctions or something.
Oh, I'll do it.
I thought you were going to have a good Christmas, eh? Take this.
Maybe I'll do it just to piss you off. Yeah, no, it's. I agree with you. Court's been running at warp factor 7 for the last several weeks. I was saying about how many of council appearances that I was doing. It was too many. And now it's going to hit that lull or that sort of calm before the storm of January when everyone realizes, yes,
January is off the charts.
Yes.
Because everyone who's like, oh, I'm not going to start anything until after the holidays, they start sweating in the week between Christmas and New Year's, and then New Year's hits, and they say, okay, time to start suing.
Yeah, yeah, and then people realize, oh, yeah, I have those papers I forgot to write. Can I have an adjournment again? Yeah,
and then we say yes because we love them. We love our adversaries.
And also because we're also just as far behind as them. But anyway.
This is also true.
That's not what we're here about tonight. Tonight we're talking about Obsession, like I said. It's another one with a space cloud. What's with the space clouds? We had the sexy space cloud, the angry space cloud, another angry space cloud. That's what this episode's about. What's with the clouds?
Crystalline Entity and TNG. Everyone. We just have these malevolent, unknown intelligences who want to kill people.
Maybe it's an anti-vegetarian thing by eating too many beans or something. I don't know. It's a little crazy. But anyway, let me read you the summary of this, if I may, from the NBC press release. And let's see how close they are this time. It says, Captain Kirk's career and the safety of the Enterprise are jeopardized by his compulsion to destroy a cloud-like creature which previously killed some of the crew in Obsession.
If living with obsession is a sin, let me be guilty.
Calvin Klein's Obsession for Men.
So, there you go. That's pretty good enough. It was supposed to air on December 15th, 1967, so that's pretty good. And, I find this as an okay episode, although we had a conversation about a couple days ago about how, in some ways, it's uncharacteristic for Kirk in his
We're going to get into it. That was my criticism, my light criticism of Arena, that Kirk was kind of just being written to be now all of a sudden very, bloodthirsty. I gotta say, they learned from their mistakes. They're getting better with their writing because this was a lot more natural feeling.
Yes.
You didn't just go from 0 to 100. So, Captain, in your encyclopedic knowledge and wisdom, tell us a little bit about the writing tonight.
Okay, well, tonight's writing was by, like I said, Art Wallace, and let's talk about what he did. He had five rewrites himself, one also by Gene Kuhn, one by Gene Roddenberry, and one set of revisions by Gene Meredith Lucas. Originally, they were trying to figure out what to make of this. They based it off of Moby Dick, and you could sort of see that where Captain Kirk is reliving something in his past where he served on the USS Farragut, which is actually named after a U.S. naval hero, and in which the Enterprise is coming to a planet with the same creature. The Farragut was attacked by some sort of creature that killed half the crew, and Captain Kirk blames himself on. That's pretty much the basis of the idea in the writing. The writer over here basically he wanted to, like many other writers, steal from the best. He was not actually a science fiction writer overall. The original concept they thought was a little bit cheesy, but they wanted an idea to have two planets. And of course, having two planets already, you could almost hear Robert Justman, the producer, saying, "What are you, crazy? Spend money?" That was the big thing behind this.
Wait, two planets?
Yeah,
how would that have worked?
Well, there were two planets here. They just redressed them. The first planet where they find the tritanium ore in the cloud.
Yes, okay, I see what you're saying.
And then they're going to the Tycho system at the end. But Art Wallace had written for actually something that you might be familiar. He wrote for Dark Shadows. He also wrote... Yes?
Do know of Dark Shadows. Really bad movie by Tim Burton.
Oh, yes, but Dark Shadows, the TV show in the 50s and 60s. Then he also wrote for Gene Roddenberry in The Lieutenant, so that's how he knew there. And also a legal drama called For the People, which also starred this guy named William Shatner. You might have heard of him. So he knew Gene Roddenberry. While having dinner with Gene Roddenberry, he said, "You know what we should do? We should adopt Moby Dick." And Gene Roddenberry said, yes. So they weren't even trying to hide it. It's really literally what this is. So
I mean... Listen, I always say, the best Star Trek episodes that I like can have a lot of, victory has 1,000 fathers, but failure is an orphan.
Yes.
Devil in the Dark, I said from the very beginning, that was Helm's Deep, that was Lord of the Rings right off the bat.
Yes, it sure is. This one, though, I do like 3/4 of this episode. I think it starts strong. It has some interesting moments in the middle. The ending, however, for me, just we'll get to it when we get to it. It's just weak. But we start off. We beam down to this planet. They find a vein of tritanium. And if those of you who saw our YouTube short, you see Kirk saying, "Do you smell that sickly sweet smell with the cloud that appears and then reverses out?" That was smoke, and they did use a camera trick to reverse the film and the frame to make it go away. But the director Saninsky said, smoke is the hardest thing to control because it goes everywhere. So they had to use a specialized fan to push it everywhere. Regardless, what did you think of that opening where you have Lieutenant Rizzo and two other red shirts die? What was your...
Well, of course they have to. They cannot have a person of Italian descent survive. So, yes, Rizzo had to die. I thought it was good. All the red shirts looked vaguely very similar. But no, I think everything's again, season 2, everything's looking a little bit better and more polished.
Yes.
I like the whole, we found this nice vein. The Enterprise is there on a mission, pro-Starfleet. They're there with intent. There's a reason why they're on the planet. And then they see this random gaseous serial killer, which I don't really... We're going to get into it. We can get into it now.
All right, go ahead.
Once again, they forgot a couple of pages. So while they were having the third time, Kirk was talking about survivor guilt with, who was the young ensign who was...
Ensign Garavik. That's the
son
of Kirk's first captain. You never forget your first captain, Mike.
Well, I'll never forget you, Captain.
Oh.
So they lingered on that a little too much. They forgot to do the bloody They forgot to do the bloody explanation as to what this cloud is and why it's killing people. It's just some vampire cloud?
Yes.
Like, why?
But
But it has intelligence, and apparently it's able to move at super light travel.
Well, that's the thing. They don't know what it is. It's a thing. It's the thing of the week, so to speak. They had no idea what it was. Also,
I know, but I mean, like the crystalline entity, they figured out what it is.
Well, they figure it out as they're going, but they never really know what it is. It was supposed to be a mystery because they just kept calling it the creature. They had no idea as to where they were going with it. They just knew that they wanted something. Just as an aside, I do like the fact when we see the creature, it's white, and since it's based over Moby Dick, that's all I keep thinking about. It's the white whale, but it's a cloud. And,
yeah, no, I gotta say, especially at the end of the episode, I think I was watching the remastered, but the special effects look pretty good.
Yeah, it's kind of like companion-y and some additional stuff into it. I do like it. So we do find out that this thing killed over 200 people on the USS Farragut, which is Kirk's first deep space mission. We also find out, by the way, just from hearing it, William Shatner has a cold throughout the entire thing. So.
Oh, really? Well, yeah. That's good, because I'm suffering from a cold myself, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. And, every word that he's saying, he sounds like he's got a stuffed nose, by the way. Because of this, in our next episode, which is called Wolf in the Fold, I think you'll discover that Spock has a cold. So.
Oh, no.
Yes, they all got sick from this, whatever the hell it was. But the issues that also that are very similar to this, and what I find hilarious in this story, because you're talking about, well, it's very similar to this, and it's missing something. D.C. Fontana noted, and so did Robert Justman, that this is very similar to the Doomsday Machine. And what's funny is that you'll notice if you listen carefully, it has the very same music cues as well as the Doomsday Machine. They're talking about the cloud. They're talking about where could it have come from. It's the same music cue as where does the Doomsday Machine come from. I may play those little beats in here from when I edit this, but that is something that you might also notice. You're talking about, is there some sort of intellect behind this? Same thing with the Doomsday Machine. Does it have a mindless nature, or does it have an intellect? Is it going to do something? These two stories are very similar to each other. And again, Moby Dick is the story they run back to, like, what, 3 times, 4 times? So we've got 2. We've got Wrath of Khan, that's 3. I'm sure we have at least 1 more. So that's it. But what do you think? You liked Rizzo, but did you notice something odd about the other 2 red shirts, or no? The ones who died?
No, I don't think so.
Lieutenant Leslie actually dies. Lieutenant Leslie, Eddie Paskey, he's the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he's back in the next episode. He always jokes like, yeah, no, I got better. So...
Well, she turned me into a newt. A newt. I got better.
He's back in the next episode. He was also hired to be Shatner's stand-in stunt double for a lot of episodes. But he dies, but somehow he comes back. He got resurrected. They put his katra back in him, and he's all better now. So there's that.
Oh, I see.
Yes. So we get that weird kind of interaction, by the way, between when Kirk calls up the next duty officer. It's not a commander or a lieutenant. It's Ensign Garovic. And yet somehow he's in charge of all of security, this ensign. Well, whatever. He says, I don't expect special treatment, and Kirk's all snappy with him. Kirk's very snappy this entire episode. He's angry at his crew. He's angry at Garovic. He's angry at himself. It's very uncharacteristic for Captain Kirk.
Well, I understand. You know?
You understand. Well, yes, he's got survivor's guilt. You know? Actually sounds pretty traumatic for a survey expedition. Could you imagine you're on a starship and like half the crew is dead and you were at the weapons station like Kirk was? I can understand why he'd be guilty.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, too. I actually think that he's holding it together pretty well.
Yeah.
Everyone is very professional. Like, we're skipping ahead, but when McCoy is doing the kind of mental health check-in inquiry, he's not yelling and screaming and getting angry or getting even emotionally defensive. He understands as a captain what's going on, that it's protocol. He might be checking himself a little bit to be like, am I going too far? It's they write Kirk smart in this. Emotional but smart.
Right. Well, Kirk is based off of C.S. Forrester's Horatio Hornblower, and I think that's more evident in this episode. I don't know if you ever read Forrester's. I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago, or more than that. C.S. Forrester's Horatio Hornblower is what Captain Kirk is based off of. The sea stories about a young ensign working all the way up the ranks of the British military or Navy during the Napoleonic Wars. It's actually a good read. I read them all. They're a lot of fun, so I recommend those as your reading assignment.
Yes, sir.
I also do like the fact that we have some interesting twists on when after we leave sickbay, we find out that Rizzo's dead, and they can't figure out all their red corpuscles. Red corpuscles are taken out of their
really
bodies.
Figure out what they were saying there. Corpuscles? Is that
corpuscles? Yeah, your red blood cells. The thing ate all the red blood cells in the human body. You would be dead. It's kind of sick. That really is a space vampire. And in the meantime, you get to see, while this is going on, I do like the fact that Kirk keeps getting reminded by everyone, Sarah, we got to go meet this other ship to drop off medical supplies, remember?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. No. Everyone keeps cutting him in. Not yeah. Captain, we've really got to get going,
Yes, Scotty was reading him the riot act. I like that.
Actually, all of them. There's even a line where Kirk says, he's like badmouths his officers, saying, like, I don't understand why you guys are like almost acting mutinous in some ways and questioning my orders, and conspiring is the phrase he used. Why are my officers conspiring against me? And then he realizes that was a real terrible thing to say.
And I'm getting a little tired of my senior officers conspiring against me. Forgive me. Perhaps I shouldn't have used the word conspire. Agreed, sir.
That's actually handled, I thought, pretty well. Because, again, everyone here is a competent professional who's concerned about their job and what happens. And then, what about...
Can you believe it?
Yeah, I know. No one's crying either. Jerry Ayers, by the way, as Rizzo, he is actually... This is the second time he dies in Star Trek, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They couldn't figure out, like, another extra?
Now, he was the... one of the tactical officers in Arena. In fact, he's the first one that dies when they say, go look over that hill, and he's the one that turns red and disappears.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Ah!
Yeah, that's the first one. So this is actually, by the way, the director's fourth Star Trek. He is also the third director between Mark Daniels and Joe Pevney. So he's like the backup on it. I think he does a pretty good job of tying it all together, even though it's on sets and a little strange looking. I mean, it's a fake planet set, but I think the lighting that they did conveys it. Like the first planet's kind of brown and red. Second planet's got more blue in it. It does make you think it's a different place. I mean, I know it's a set, but it does.
No, but they did a very good job. And whoever they have, God, I'm going to get his name.
Jerry Finnerman
is playing the guy with the G.
The guy with the G? Edson Garavek?
Garavek. He's doing a good job.
Stephen Brooks.
Yes, Stephen Brooks. Not bad at all. I'm impressed.
He was in another TV show called The FBI. He actually took this because he was tired of being in the FBI, because he said most of his scenes were walking through a door going like, and he said he wanted a different challenge. And I don't blame him. I think
so.
He did
wait, was there a show? There was The FBI that you just mentioned. Is it also a show called FBI, or is that the same show?
I think this is the same show. Hold on, I will.
Okay. The only reason I know about that is because I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes.
And Rick Dalton, the character in that, is on an episode of FBI.
Yeah, he is in this. He's in that TV show. There's a lot of episodes. But just getting to the episode, I think the idea of this creature is kind of disturbing. You got
very disturbing and scary. Can't be bargained with. Kind of Borgish.
Well, it's not necessarily. Kirk calls it malevolent. I don't think it's malevolent. I think it's just trying to survive. You've got a food source there. I'm hungry. I'm taking it. I think that's pretty much about it. But it would be a big trouble considering what it actually is. The one thing I found fascinating is that 2 seconds where Garavik is freezing and shoots the creature. I think that's actually Kirk really rips into him at that faux courtroom section, that mini court martial there. What'd you think of that? Where you think Kirk was going off the rails there on poor Ensign Garrovick, or what?
Yeah, a little bit. A little angry. A little too angry.
Mm-hmm.
But, whatever. It's also, these are supposed to be the best of the best. And there were people who died. And he's like, you could have killed the damn thing. But, I mean, that gets a little fugazi later on when they're like, oh, it can bounce between time. It's like, what? Where'd that come from?
Time and dimension. It's both exists here and doesn't. Yeah. Star Trek likes to play that fast and loose in lots of episodes where
I was just saying, like, they didn't have to add in time travel powers to this thing.
Well, it's dimensional shifting. It's not necessarily time travel, so that's kind of weird. I do like the fact that Kirk is like so aware of what this thing is. By the way, in the original story, it was no Ensign Garrovick. It was just Rizzo. That Kirk is like yelling at Rizzo the entire time. Rizzo's throughout the entire thing, and they decided to split it up. They wanted a Chekhov, they wanted some Garrovick, and they wanted to split it between to make the main characters stay around. So you also notice there's no Sulu because that's where he's right now off filming the movie The Green Berets. So that's where he is. But that is what happens. Rizzo is only there for a short period, and they basically split his character between two other things. Kirk in the original actually blames and berates him. Spock is never around. McCoy's advice is ignored. And Kirk is more obsessed than he is in this episode, basically throwing his ship into danger. Although you could argue that's happening here. After they are still investigating, Spock and McCoy are discussing what's going on with the captain. I actually do like that scene where Spock comes to him and he says, I need your advice. And McCoy says, well, then I need a drink, because what else is... That's
He's like, hey, sip of the true.
Sip of the
Be a
true.
little drunk to do my job.
That's right. No wonder.
I need your advice. Then I need a drink. I do not understand your reasoning. You need advice from me? You must be kidding.
But you also get the impression that Dr. McCoy does not have an easy hand or gentle bedside manner, not just from this episode, I'll tell you that much.
Well, that's why they call him Sawbones.
Yeah, yeah, gruff.
Of course not.
It's pretty funny.
Okay, quick aside, by the way. I think that we've chatted about this before. Your fictional starship, you're going with Dr. Phlox, or you're going with the Doctor from Voyager?
Oh, wow. I think I'd go with Dr. Phlox. I think I like his jokey
I like
nature.
him quite a bit. No, actually, but I like John more. That's his name, right? John? Joe?
Who,
what?
the actor is what you're talking about? Or you're talking about...
No, he chooses a name for himself in Voyager Endgame. I think it's Joe.
It's John. It's John. Joe's
Okay.
your brother, just to remind you.
Yes, private. Yes. So, okay. All right. Very well.
Right. So,
Go on.
Anyway, I just like the fact that you can see that although Kirk and Spock and McCoy have like this kind of love-hate relationship with each other, they do rely on each other for numerous things. They do talk to each other from time to time. Also, I do like the fact that even though Spock is being nice and to McCoy, there's a little bit of acerbic nature to it. It's like, did you read it yet? Well, there's over 10 hours of it, and I've been doing all these autopsies, so no. Well, luckily I use faster than you. It's like, geez, man. Whatever. You can say
and
that's
skipping around a little bit, by the way, speaking of Spock, I really thought it was going in a different direction when I really liked that scene where the gasket's on the ship and it's going into Garrovick's quarters, and Spock whips right into action and saves his life, grabs him, pulls him out, and then he puts his hands over it. I'm like, oh, great. Is he going to mind meld with this thing?
Yeah.
And no, he didn't. I thought he was going to mind meld with gas and give us an explanation about what it wants and why it's doing the thing, but no, alas. Old Michael Pontone, if only he was writing in Hollywood in the 60s, could have salvaged this episode. No, I'm just joking. It was a good episode.
Yeah, it's fine. And also they say gaseous anomalies and gaseous clouds a lot. So for our channel, we both love it for that. Yeah.
Oh yes, Captain. I would like you to put in a little sound clip actually. When Scotty, one of my favorite lines. when Scotty is saying, "Hey, she's gonna blow up if we keep pushing her this hard." I love the line from Undiscovered Country, where Sulu's racing to Kittimer.
Yes.
And he goes,
Fly
"In
her
range,"
apart.
he goes, "She'll fly apart. Fly her apart then." Like,
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna go save my friends. Love
Yeah,
it.
that's true.
She'll fly apart. Fly apart then.
But, would you say that Scotty leaving the emergency vent on the impulse engine was a mistake, incompetence, or he's just very busy? What do you think about
I
that?
don't know who's shutting the vent. We don't even know. No,
He-
we don't
he-
even
he
know
opens-
that this thing.
Well, when they're
We don't even
chasing
know
him.
that this thing can do anything.
Well, they're chasing it at warp factor 7, and Scotty's like, we got to take your foot off the accelerator. The tachometer is telling us we can't go this fast. Chasing the thing. And when they're slowing down, the creature turns at fight, but Scotty, for maintenance, had opened up the impulse engine vent. That's the outside of space, and that's how the creature gets in. In the original story, because the creature is somewhat interdimensional, it just phased through the ship. I like this idea where there's an access port that's open, so it's not like all knowing or all powerful. Their phasers and torpedoes don't work. Goes right through it. Spock notices that it's that interdimensional thing, and yet it's able to go. It has to follow the path of a vent system. I think that's a little silly. But before that,
Also, I mean, like, is this thing? This thing was huge and could, was traveling at faster than light speeds, but it's like small enough that I could basically only kill one guy at a time.
yeah, it's busy.
Sure.
I do like, by the way, before we get into that, when it does get into the vent system, Chris Chappell comes in. It's one of her times she's written in, Major Roddenberry. She gets to go in there, and this is where I was saying, like, you see, is McCoy a hard ass? Because she comes on in and says to Ensign Garrick, "You got to eat something." And on this data disk, it says one word, "eat." So you better eat, or we're going to intravenously feed you.
Dr. McCoy could, and possibly would, have you hauled down to sickbay and fed intravenously.
And she said, because the doctor's going to do that. It makes me think anyway, that Dr. McCoy is somewhat feared on the ship for some reason.
Well, like you said, not exactly gentle hands.
No, he's, although Dax liked his hands, and that was in Deep Space Nine. She said he had quite the hands of a surgeon, but that has something else, I think. You remember that, where Dax had a thing for Dr. McCoy? No?
Yes, that she thought that he was quite striking.
Yes, and he had the hands of a surgeon. Ooh. Terry Farrell was very nice in real life. I still haven't showered since she hugged me. No, that's not true.
Oh boy. So a month ago, ladies and gentlemen.
Gosh, she's like 6'5". I can't, or 6'7". She's so tall. It's like, wow. I
No,
felt like
see, Matt is 5'2", so everyone looks huge to him.
No, I am not 5'2".
I know,
I'm
no, he's
4'8".
not.
So it's the idea. By the way, you would just want to say the idea with the creature, where the creature goes into the vent system. Yes, I do like the fact that as Spock's trying to psychoanalyze Garrick and tell him, you know who else had guilt was Captain Kirk, which is what McCoy is actually confronting Kirk about in another scene.
Monsters come in many forms. The greatest monster of them all, Jim? Guilt.
That's when the Cloud gets on board the ship. But one of the things that I find humorous on this, or in their thinking, is like, well, let's not have Spock get hurt again. And we come to that funny line when he comes out of the cabin. Kirk says to me, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?" That's the second time that I know of that Kirk says that to Spock.
Don't misunderstand my next question. Mr. Spock, why aren't you dead?
Yeah.
First the
Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan, right in the beginning. I actually think that's a pretty funny full circle, considering this is also Moby Dick, and that's also fun. What else we have going on here? Well, one of the other things I do like is that confrontation between McCoy and Kirk. What do you think about that? Where McCoy is calling out Kirk's BS, saying, guilt is also a monster. That's psycho.
Great. I mean, listen, I've been in this situation before where, it really stinks when you have a buddy who cannot take any criticism. They flip out, and it's like, well, that's a distinctly something that I see that is different from male and female relationships are men have to be able to tell each other when they're doing something wrong. I understand with women generally, it's like it's much more loaded. It's like it could ruin a friendship if they're not extraordinarily diplomatic. Men have to be able to be like, "Hey, moron, stop making your bad mistake. You're completely out of line."
That's true.
And we have to be able to take that and move on.
Yeah, that's a trait many people have. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I agree with you, and I like that kind of that friendship between them, and that entire scene. And then, of course, it's just done for drama. How long was Spock standing in the hallway waiting to be pulled into the room to say, "Let's go confront Kirk"?
Yeah, it wasn't
I liked
great. I still kind of liked it. I liked the. Listen, they obviously had needed something to pad the episode out.
Mm-hmm.
They padded it a little bit out with the son of the dead captain being there.
Yes.
And they padded it a little bit out with the competency hearing, alas, similar to when the competency hearing that he was having when he was getting old.
Yes,
but done much better and much quicker.
Yes, thankfully.
So, listen, I understand why they're doing this on a 52-minute show. They need a couple of more pages. It's fine. It's okay. It's not great, but it's not so bad.
It's not so bad. But I think also Kirk eating himself up over this, it's understandable. But once they realize, the idea that nothing they could have done years ago or now would have made a difference, I think that's the point where the sudden realization that, you know what, we got to destroy this thing. But here's a question. If phasers and photon torpedoes work, what necessarily makes you think that an antimatter explosion would make it work in killing this thing? Couldn't it just phase out of the area?
Nay, but maybe it has a limited range,
Maybe.
It's like a Nightcrawler can only teleport to places that he can see.
That's quite true. And he says "bamf," or that's the sound effect.
Well, no,
anyway.
that's the sound that he makes.
That proves we've both read X-Men.
Correct.
Yes.
Cool character.
Yes. The science people had wanted to point out to you when they were researching this for Star Trek, they said that if there was an antimatter explosion, the shock waves, the Enterprise probably would have been shattered apart, considering where it was in orbit. But
sure. Just
getting to it, they come to the idea that in order to catch or destroy the creature, they were going to use an antimatter bomb. I did want to mention something else.
It was a cool-looking bomb, by the way.
It really was. Originally, they had like a blue box. I wanted to just mention Spock's copper-based blood. That was one thing.
Copper-based blood, interesting. I guess that's why it's green.
Yeah.
But did you see when they call security down to Garavik's room? There was like one MP who had like a gigantic cylinder phaser gun. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's not a gun. That's actually a scanner thingy. Yes. Yeah, I know. That looked really bizarre. But that's a prop that they use for a scanning thing. Because you'll see them using that as an engineering tool later. Yeah, that was pretty weird looking. But
pretty strange.
Security is pretty competent in this episode, even though this has the record for the most dead red shirts in an episode. 4 dead.
Really?
4 dead. Crazy,
right? Interesting.
Yeah. Actually, one of the red shirts is actually more famous than the rest of them. One of the red shirts inside later becomes a musical composer for many films and so forth. So that's a really weird part in all this. And the red shirt that I'm referring to is when they go down the second time to the planet, they go down and they see there's like Kirk takes like a group of 3 people in one way. You know what I'm talking about? He like goes one way in Garavik. Okay. So one of the other notable red shirts in this, and it's the one who walked away with Kirk when they go down the second time to the planet, on the first planet. His name is Basil Palladorius. He's a dead security guard, but he was the composer of some films that you might have heard of, like Conan the Barbarian.
Never saw it.
Starship Troopers.
Oh, love that.
RoboCop.
What? No.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite themes of all time.
And Hunt for Red October. So he did he was
God.
the composer on all of those movies.
He did
I
RoboCop?
think-
Wait, who was this
Yep.
guy again?
His name is Basil Polidorus. Isn't that bizarre? So
And-
this guy who's a security guard is also like a major Hollywood composer in the 80s and 90s. It's pretty funny. So look him up. I'll play a sound clip from Conan in here because I took it. I think that's really funny. They all have very, I guess you could say, like masculine, heavy toned music. Conan the Barbarian from 82 is actually really. You've never seen Conan the
I
Barbarian?
never sat down and watched it. I was a horror movie guy, not a swords and sandals
Oh.
guy.
You should see Conan. You learn what is best in life. So I won't tell you what it is. You'll just have to listen. So that's basically where we're at. We find that we understand that even though they have perishable medical supplies, Kirk realizes somehow that he has a psychic bond with this cloud. And they chase the ship, the cloud creature out of it, and they're following it, out of the Enterprise, and they're following it. One of the ways, though, I have a problem with. It's the dumbest thing in the episode for me. And you're going to say, like, oh, really? Just one? So they want to get the cloud out of the Enterprise, and it's
Yeah.
in the ventilation system, and they only have air without, like, power generation for about 2 hours. So Kirk says, Scotty, why don't you dump some of the radioactive waste into the ventilation system? Maybe that'll chase it out.
Everyone
and he
got
goes,
cancer.
aye.
Scotty, try flushing the radioactive waste into the ventilation system. See what effect that has.
Aye. What? I don't know about that. That to me is that's the WTF moment. I know we haven't had one of those in a while, but that to me is the
Listen,
WTF
I will just
moment.
say that there is it is established often that you can get inoculations against radiation poisoning in Star Trek.
That's true. That's
So,
what they
you
did
know,
in
maybe
the
they
Deadly
just-
Years.
Yeah, and that was also in Star Trek First Contact when there's
Yes.
radiation leaking off the nuclear bomb.
That's right. They just need adrenaline.
Yes, of course.
Or hyronolin. Adrenaline. Adrenaline, that's right. Well, anyway, they figure out if they use an antimatter explosive with blood as the bait, they'll be able to kill this thing. I do like that scene at the end where they're going down there. Garivik and Kirk go down there. I like the fact that they set the bomb. And that's, to me, this is the point where we're in the episode where it begins to, I don't know, it begins to fall apart more than anything else. Is that last, I guess you could say it's the kind of the last act of it where they try and bait the creature. Baiting the creature's fine. The antimatter explosive floating device is cool.
And the
fact that
last
they've
second
time it-
standoff and the very thin escape from the planet on the transporter. I thought it was good. I
Yep.
thought we were going to see a Star Trek 1 motion picture scene. Ah!
Close, but it's actually the same scene again with a countdown kind of from the Doomsday Machine. In fact, one of the button sequences, which is cut from another episode, is actually Scotty setting or actually Kirk setting the explosive of the Constellation in a button sequence. But that aside, the thing that drives me crazy in my second WTF, which isn't is that fight scene between Garivik and Kirk. I just think that was ridiculous. You didn't have to do that.
I
Garivik
thought
attacks
it was
Kirk.
funny that they fought each other. Again, a pretty good guy moment where they beat the crap out of each other for about 10 seconds, and they're like, "All right, come on, let's get out of here."
Yeah.
Yeah. I karate chopped you in the back of the neck. I punched you in the face. All right, we got that out of our systems.
Yeah, but my question is, do you think the cloud creatures go like, ooh, sweat on my meat? I mean, I don't know when you're looking at that thing. But they have to destroy it because if it breeds, it will take over the universe and kill everybody that has red blood cells, or, humans, maybe Klingons, which may have red or purple blood cells. Who knows? So would you want a galaxy filled with Vulcans? It'd be very boring, I'll tell you that much.
That's true.
So,
what the hell do they do for entertainment?
They talk about math. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Chess, there's actually some comedian. I was trying to find it from years ago. I have it on a audio tape where he goes, "Wouldn't it be funny if he said his lines backwards? Enterprise, detonate, then energize. No, wait, energize, then detonate. You know, that would be kind of, because that's the line, is like
Yes,
they
of course.
eat. I think it's mildly humorous. So they beam up. Of course they're going to make it. I like McCoy's wry observation of the transporter again. He really hates this thing.
Crazy way to travel, spreading a man's molecules all over the universe.
I don't know. Would you enjoy being beamed up all over the place? What do you think? Not counting the Twilight Zone episodes and other horror where you have duplicates, and even in Star Trek it has it. What do you think of that idea of transportation on that?
What about it?
Transporter. What do you think? Would you be hesitant on it? Does it scare you? What do you think?
A transporter?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's a suicide machine. You're dead. You
Yeah.
die. It kills you. Just
Oh, it
because
does?
a copy that thinks it's you comes out the other side doesn't mean a damn thing.
So you're saying that these are not our original characters whatsoever?
No,
Could
but I mean,
be.
okay, listen. The flip side of that is also, like, do we survive? Every cell in our body is replaced every 7 years. So we're already like a ship of Theseus situation going on. So
That's true.
it doesn't really matter, right? I'm sure I would get
Right.
over it. Once I'm able to go from, my apartment to New Orleans for a dozen oysters and then back again in time for court, yeah, no, I would be fine with it.
Or you could stop at Ben Cisco's restaurant. You know, it'd be a good time.
Of
so,
course.
It's a good time. Who doesn't like going to listen to Grandpa Cisco talk about what andouille sausage is like that day? I actually like that. Brock Peters as Captain Cisco's dad. I like that one. But anyway, that's pretty much about it. They destroy the creature, and in the enhanced version, you see this big giant hole on the planet, which I actually like. I think that's actually a pretty cool effect. And Kirk says to Garvik, here, let me tell you some tall tales about your dad. I bet you'll find them funny. Oh, thank you. And we never see him ever again.
Well, it's a big ship, but sure.
It is a big ship, sure. Not as big as its captain, though, Scotty.
Ah, yes. Wait. That's the Excelsior, of course.
Undiscovered
With Sumo.
country. Yes, that's true. The line after this is, how would you know, Scotty?
What?
So-
No, everyone. Sulu's a good guy.
Yeah, I know, but that's a sexual comment about Scotty and
No,
and, Sulu.
big of heart, big of character.
Yes,
You
yes,
weirdo.
But you got to think. You
Captain,
got to think more like
please.
a 7-year-old boy for a second.
You know what
9-year-old boy.
I was reflecting on this. How interesting it is. I was watching TNG the other night. That it's a bunch of people in their 30s and 40s, and they're all single. Like
Yeah.
it does show that an interesting future society where marriage and having children is obviously second to career, especially amongst officers. Like they get around to it
people get
eventually,
married.
but I also like that they're pretty straight. That they're pretty pro, relationships. They all have dalliances.
Well, I mean, they're also they have birth control. But people are married on the Enterprise. Not our main crew, but on the Enterprise, people are married.
They're enlisted,
I mean-
though. They're the people who do not take their career as seriously.
I guess you could say that. You could say Chief O'Brien's married.
He's an enlisted
although
man.
That's quite true, and that
Yes.
marriage is disturbing. So,
What? No, Keiko? No, come on.
come on, Keiko's really mean. I don't know.
Hey, Matt and I are both married to women of Asian descent. We know what mean women are like. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, my
Oh,
wife's a
yes,
sweetheart.
that's true. Oh, they're both sweethearts. So, but anyway, let's talk about how much this cost. Let me just point out. I'm going to give you some hints here. They reused a lot of musical cues from the Doomsday Machine. They reused some actual video footage or film footage. And remember, their budget is $182,000. So how much in $1967, Mike, do you think they spent?
I think they went over budget. It was a big crew, lots of special effects, 2 locations. Well, 1 location dressed twice. $199,000.
Nope. Again, over.
Oh, my goodness.
They actually were below budget this time. They spent $170,871 in 1967, and that in 2024 dollars is $614,904.84. So they came underneath. That's actually a pretty good deal. Studio breathed a sigh of relief, and that's pretty much about it. Just a couple other things. Did you like the other officers? You like Chekhov in this as like a secondary science officer? You like Uhura? You like Chapel? Any of them stand out, especially in any way to you at all? Or?
No, they didn't do anything. Once again, I could completely understand why Kirk is like, don't complain. You're just showing up and saying 2 lines. I got to memorize all that stupid crap.
Although I'm going to have to agree with you. I do like they do emote well. I do like Uhura's concern telling that Rizzo died and her professionalism saying we got to get going over here. I like Chekhov. He seems to be the most excitable young guy, and he's not wearing that ugly Beatles wig. So
sure, yeah, he's looking pretty well. I assume
yes.
This is still not his hair, but just a much better wig.
Yes,
Gotcha.
It's a better wig and some of his hair. And that's pretty much about it. I don't think there's anything else left to say on this episode, unless there's something you want to point out.
No, I'm ready to give the rating.
All right, so in our very scientific 1 to 10 scale, Mike, what would you give Obsession?
I thought the acting was actually particularly good. I thought the setup was actually pretty good as well, better than Doomsday Machine, which is its closest analogous setup. I thought that everyone acted pretty professionally. At the same time, it wasn't great. The writing spun its wheels a little bit. It was missing a couple of important things as to motivation. And it was a little muddy with this ticking clock threat of the medication and, this relationship with this young kid and Kirk. It was a little convenient. All to say, 7 out of 10.
Wow. Again, we match. I, too, give it a 7 out of 10.
Great minds.
For almost very similar. Yes, great minds do think alike. I give it a 7 out of 10 for very similar reasons.
Yeah.
First off, as I told you, the last third of this episode I can't stand. It seems very convenient that they able to track it down, know what it's doing, that psychic connection between the Cloud and Kirk. And then that fight scene. I
like the fight scene.
I hate it. I don't like the thing of like putting radioactive waste into the vent system. It's a minor thing, just drives me crazy. But I do like the episodes overall. It's a monster chase, fun adventure for the most part. But for what it is, it's not the best film I've ever seen best episode I've ever seen but it's not of Star Trek. But it's not the worst either. I like this for what it is. It's an adventure. It's got its danger. It's got a professional crew and lots of good beats in it. And you do see the triumvirate, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, bounce off each other.
Yeah.
And you also do see the other crew in doing their job. So that's pretty much about it.
And everyone doing very, correct,
yes,
like professional actions. No crying, no yelling. People taking each other very seriously with respect and professionalism, even in the wake of highly emotional things.
Yeah, and you know what? Even though Kirk is somewhat emotionally damaged from this and his feelings here, he actually is able to contain himself and control himself to a degree, even though he does set the ship and crew on a collision course with a possible danger. Kirk could lose his command. The ship, everyone could be dead, and they're all drained of blood, and more of these creatures out there. Although it was a chance, it was a good chance that a commander would have to take. As Kirk says in one of his own personal dialogues, he says, as a commander, you learn to rely on your own intuition, not just your training.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows the professionalism of this crew and captain above everything else. And yes, I'm going to say it, unlike new Star Trek today.
Yes.
But that's a story for another day. Anyway, that's all we have for this episode. Anything else you want to say besides Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas Kwanzaa, or Christmas Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Winter Holiday, Merry Everything is Christmas cards,
just,
like to say,
glad
or
to be
holiday
together
cards.
at this time of the year. I love Christmas. I also love Christmas being over. I like to get back to normal. I like celebrations. I like the holidays. I like all parts of the year. February is kind of probably the roughest part of the year, But also, you can try to pepper things in, catch up on some reading, catch up on some movies, catch up with people that you didn't get to see during the holidays, that type of thing.
Well, and anytime I get to podcast with my XO, Michael, is always a good time. Yeah, it's a good time. I look forward to the holidays, too. It's fun. We have a Star Trek themed holiday every year. Our holiday tree's got almost every
Did you post
starship.
any of that to the community board yet?
Now, I'm going to. I'm also going to put up the holiday Christmas songs that have Star Trek themes. I made a playlist of gentlemen to put together all that. I'll put that on the community board, and I'll take some pictures of our tree. It's actually hilarious. I have the Enterprise, the Borg, all sorts of neat things on there. And so we've got our next episode coming up will be Wolf in the Fold. That's a interesting episode, to be sure. You can take a hint at it from the new promo that's coming out. And, we are now past our 1-year anniversary, Mike. We actually started last year.
We're working on something special for our viewers out there.
Yep, it's going to be a video, we promise. I even got the special camera for it, so I'm looking forward to that. And as always, Mike, again, it's always a pleasure. I'd like to say live long and prosper to you, and happy holidays to you and all of our listeners. And as always, live long and prosper, and see you out there.
Mr. Scott, there was no deity involved. It was my cross-circuiting to be that recovered them.
Well, then, thank pitchforks and pointed ears.